The Grand Council chamber fell silent as the vote results appeared on the large display screen. Every member of the Galactic Council had voted in favor of the motion. Humans were now officially classified as a Class C civilization. Park Jun stood perfectly still at the podium. His face showed no emotion, though he had just watched his species be downgraded to a status that would cut them off from the most advanced technologies in the galaxy. As the last human ambassador to the Council, he had expected this outcome, but the unanimous vote still stung. "The Council has spoken," announced Thalos, the tree-like arboreal Prime Minister. His branches swayed with satisfaction. "Humans have proven too unpredictable and potentially dangerous to warrant Class A status. The technological sharing program with Earth will end immediately." Park Jun bowed slightly, his gray suit immaculate, his posture perfect. "The Earth government acknowledges the Council's decision," he said in a clear, calm voice. "We thank you for your consideration." Several Council members exchanged surprised looks. They had expected protests, anger, perhaps even threats. The humans had fought hard for their Class A status over the past 50 years. To lose it now without complaint seemed strange. Park Jun gathered his data tablets, placed them neatly in his briefcase, and stepped away from the podium. As he walked toward the exit, his steps measured and unhurried, he activated the small communication device hidden in his sleeve. "Status C confirmed," he said quietly. "Initiate quiet departure." Across the massive orbital station that housed the Galactic Council headquarters, humans began to move. They did not run or draw attention to themselves. Shop owners closed their businesses for inventory. Research scientists logged out of their terminals for scheduled maintenance. Diplomatic staff cited routine document updates as they cleared out their offices. On the lowest level of the station, Kim Soo, Earth's defense secretary, received Park Jun's message. She looked up from her desk at the small team of human military officers around her. "It's time," she said simply. Her officers nodded and left the room without a word. Each had their assigned tasks, carefully planned and rehearsed over the past 5 years. Earth had prepared for this day since the first hints that the Council was reconsidering humanity's status. Kim Soo opened a secure channel to the fleet of human ships docked at the station. "Begin disconnection procedures. Maintain communication silence after acknowledgement." One by one, the captains of 27 human vessels sent back a single signal. "Acknowledged." In the Council chamber, the aliens had already moved on to other matters. Few noticed the absence of the human delegation, who normally occupied seats in the observer section. Those who did simply assumed they had left to process their disappointment. No one noticed as the human ships quietly detached from the docking ports, their engines running at minimum power to avoid attention. They did not broadcast departure signals. They simply drifted away from the station using maneuvering thrusters, waiting until they were at a safe distance before engaging their main drives. Park Jun boarded the last ship to leave, the diplomatic vessel Earth Envoy. The captain, Li Ji, greeted him with a nod. "All personnel accounted for?" Park Jun asked. "Yes, Ambassador. All 412 humans from the station are aboard our vessels. No one left behind." Park Jun took a seat by the viewport and watched as the massive Council station grew smaller in the distance. He felt no triumph, no anger, only a strange sense of relief. The pretense was over. Humanity could now follow its own path. "Send the final code to Earth," he instructed. "Tell them we're coming home and Phase 2 can begin." Across Council space, the same scene played out. On hundreds of worlds, at research stations, trading posts, and embassies, humans simply left. They did not announce their departures or file flight plans. Supply contracts were neither renewed nor formally canceled. Communication channels remained open, but no one was there to respond. On the agricultural world of Nexus 4, Moon-Tae supervised as the last shipment of specialized Earth crops was loaded onto their transport. The alien farm workers watched in confusion. "But who will maintain the irrigation systems?" asked the farm supervisor, a reptilian Draxus. "Your people designed them. We don't fully understand how they work." Moon-Tae handed him a data pad. "Basic instructions are here. Good luck." He boarded the transport without looking back. At the Virillian Medical Academy, Dr. Beiji cleared out her laboratory with methodical precision. Her research into cross-species genetic disorders had saved millions of lives across the galaxy. Her Virillian colleagues watched in disbelief as she packed away equipment that only she knew how to operate. "You can't just leave," protested the Academy director. "Your work is vital to 17 species." Dr. Beiji smiled politely. "The Council has decided humans are Class C. We respect their assessment of our value." She sealed the last crate and signaled for her assistants to move it to their waiting ship. Within 3 days, every human embassy in Council space had been vacated. Within a week, human trading posts had closed. After 2 weeks, the last human research station went dark. No announcements were made. No threats were issued. No demands were presented. Humanity simply vanished from Council space. The initial reaction from the Council was smug satisfaction. Many species had long resented humans for their rapid advancement and their constant questioning of established procedures. The silence from Earth was interpreted as acceptance of their new lower status. "They'll be back," predicted the Quantum Minister of Trade. "They need our markets for their goods. They need our technology for their development. This is just a tantrum." But as weeks turned into months, an uneasy feeling began to spread. The human absence was creating unexpected problems. On the Council station, the power grid began experiencing fluctuations. The chief engineer, a Promethean with 7 limbs specialized for technical work, discovered that key parts of the system were failing. "The maintenance protocols are incomplete," he reported to station management. "The human engineer, Li Han, made modifications that aren't in our documentation. Without his expertise, I can't guarantee stability." Similar reports came in from across Council space. Systems that had been designed or modified by humans began to falter. Documentation was found to be missing key details. Replacement parts that had once been supplied by human manufacturers were suddenly unavailable. 3 months after the Council vote, the first serious crisis emerged. A Thoraxian colony suffered a crop failure as their soil purification system broke down. The system had been a human design, maintained by human technicians who had departed without explanation. 6 months in, the galactic market reported significant disruptions in supply chains. Many specialized goods that had come from human factories or human-managed operations were no longer available. Prices for alternatives soared. 1 year after humanity's departure, an emergency session of the Council was called. "We may have made a mistake," admitted Thalos reluctantly. "The humans were more integrated into our infrastructure than we realized." "Where did they go?" demanded several counselors. "There have been no communications from Earth for months. Our ambassadors were politely but firmly asked to leave Earth space shortly after our vote." The head of Council Intelligence, a shadowy figure known only as the Observer, presented his findings. "Our best information suggests they have withdrawn to their home system and a small number of their established colonies. However, we are detecting unusual energy signatures from the regions beyond the Sagittarius arm. It's possible they are establishing new settlements, well outside our normal territories. Are they planning some kind of retaliation?" asked a nervous counselor. "That is unclear. What is clear is that they prepared for this separation well in advance. Their departure was too organized, too thorough to be a spontaneous reaction." Back on Earth, in a secured conference room deep beneath the Seoul Regional Government Center, the human leadership gathered to assess their progress. Park Jun, now appointed as strategic director, presented the latest reports. "Phase 1 is complete. We have successfully extracted all personnel and critical resources from Council space without incident." Kim Soo nodded with satisfaction. "And Phase 2? A scientist named Yoon Jin stood up, her excitement barely contained. "Phase 2 exceeds all expectations. Freed from Council technological restrictions, our research teams are making breakthroughs daily. The new drive system is already in testing. Early results suggest it will be at least 3 times more efficient than anything in Council space." Park Jun allowed himself a small smile. "Then we proceed as planned. The Council made their choice. Now we make ours." As the meeting concluded, he paused at a viewport overlooking the city. Seoul glittered in the evening light, its towers reaching toward the stars. Humanity had drifted away quietly from the Galactic Council, but they were not retreating. They were simply finding their own path forward, a path that would eventually lead the Council to regret their decision. The humans had left without a fight, without a protest, but their absence would prove to be the most powerful statement of all. 5 years passed since humanity's quiet departure from Galactic Council space. At first, the Council races had felt relief, even superiority. They had put the unpredictable humans in their place. But that feeling did not last long. On the Central Council station, the chief power engineer stared at his screens in despair. The massive power distribution network that supplied energy to the entire station was failing again. This was the third time this month. "I don't understand," he said to his assistant. "We've replaced all the components. We've followed every procedure in the manual. Why does it keep failing?" His assistant, younger and more direct, stated what everyone now knew. "Because Li Han isn't here. The human made changes to the system that aren't in any manual." The chief engineer sighed. Li Han had been a quiet, efficient human who had worked on the station's power systems for 15 years. When he left with the other humans, he took his knowledge with him. Now they were paying the price. Across the station, a similar scene played out in the medical research wing. A group of Virillian doctors huddled around a patient suffering from a rare genetic disorder. Dr. Beiji would have known what to do, one of them said. Her treatment protocols worked on 17 different species. "We've tried to recreate her research," another replied, "but key elements are missing from the database." She took her most important findings with her. The Virillians had been among the most vocal supporters of downgrading humans to Class C status. They had considered human medical practices primitive and unrefined. Now they struggled without the innovative approaches that Dr. Beiji had brought to their most difficult cases. On the frontier world of Nexus Prime, the situation was even worse. The planet had once been a major source of rare minerals essential for Council military vessels. The mining operations there had been overseen by Moonte, a human engineer known for his ability to keep the complex extraction machinery running in Nexus Prime's harsh environment. Grell, the Drax's supervisor who had taken over after Moonte's departure, kicked a broken excavator in frustration. "Nothing works," he shouted to his crew. The humans took the maintenance codes with them. They took the specialized tools. "We've lost half our production capacity." His anger was echoed across Council space as the absence of humanity continued to create unexpected problems. The humans had never been the dominant species in the Council. They had not held the highest political offices or commanded the largest fleets. But they had integrated themselves into countless essential systems and operations, filling niches that others overlooked or considered beneath them. Now those gaps were becoming chasms. In the Grand Council chamber, an emergency session had been called. The atmosphere was tense, with representatives from dozens of worlds demanding answers. Supreme Counselor Gresh, a massive gas-breathing entity who required a special environment suit to interact with oxygen breathers, called the session to order. "We face unprecedented challenges," Gresh's voice boomed through the translation system. "The human departure has created a cascade of technological and economic failures that threatens the stability of the entire Council." The economic minister, a small avian creature named Chirix, fluttered his wings in distress as he presented the latest data. Trade volume has decreased by 22% across all sectors. Key technologies are failing faster than we can repair them. Production of military vessels is down 60% due to mineral shortages. Counselor Thalos, who had been instrumental in the vote to downgrade humanity, raised a branch-like limb. "Surely we can adapt. Humans are just one species. Their technology wasn't even the most advanced in the Council." A harsh laugh came from the back of the chamber. An older Promethean engineer named Zorax approached the speaking platform, his 7 limbs moving with the precision that made his species renowned technicians. "You still don't understand," Zorax said. "Human technology wasn't special because it was advanced. It was special because it was adaptable. Humans could make anything work with anything else. They created interfaces between systems that should not have been compatible. They found workarounds that no other species would have considered." He projected an image of a complex mechanism. "This is a power coupling from the main station. It connects arboreal organic tech with Promethean quantum circuits, 2 systems that normally cannot interface. A human engineer named Li Han designed this 10 years ago. Now it's failing. And none of us can figure out how it works because the documentation is incomplete." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council had built an infrastructure that depended on human ingenuity without realizing it. Now that ingenuity was gone. Counselor Thalos seemed to shrink slightly, his branches drooping. "What do you suggest we do?" Supreme Counselor Gresh's environment suit hissed as it adjusted to his changing mood. "We must find them. The humans possess knowledge critical to our civilization's functioning. The council voted to authorize a search expedition. The mission would be led by Commander Vaxus, a veteran explorer who had worked closely with humans during his career and claimed to understand their thinking. His first officer, Ilara, was less optimistic. As their scout vessel prepared to depart from the council station, Ilara reviewed their mission parameters. "This is pointless," she told Vaxus. "They disappeared without a trace. No hyperdrive signatures, no communication beacons. It's as if they simply ceased to exist." Vaxus adjusted his uniform, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as they always did when he was thinking. "Humans are resourceful, not magical. They went somewhere, and we will find them." Their search began in the logical places: Earth's solar system and the few official colony worlds that humans had established during their time in the Council. But they found these worlds largely abandoned, with only minimal populations and automated beacons warning away visitors. Most of these colonies are decoys, Vaxus concluded after their third such discovery, maintained just enough to appear inhabited from a distance. The real human activity must be elsewhere. They expanded their search, following rumors and sparse data collected from traders operating in the fringes of known space. After months of dead ends, they detected unusual energy readings from an uncharted region beyond the Sagittarius Arm. "These readings match nothing in our database," Ilara said as she analyzed the sensor data. "But they're too regular to be natural phenomena." Vaxus studied the readings and made a decision. Set course. Maximum stealth protocols. Their ship slipped into the uncharted region, sensors at full sensitivity. What they discovered shocked them to their core. The humans hadn't fled in defeat. They had been methodically establishing themselves far from Council influence for decades. The search party found not 1 but 7 fully developed colony worlds, connected by a network of transit points that operated on principles unknown to Council science. "This is impossible," Ilara whispered as they observed the third such colony from orbit. "These worlds show infrastructure development that would take at least 50 years to build. The humans only left Council space 5 years ago." "No," Vaxus replied, his voice grim. "They began leaving 50 years ago. The physical departure we witnessed was just the final phase. Further observation revealed the truth. Humanity had been quietly preparing for independence from the Council for generations. While maintaining their presence in Council space, they had been developing these hidden colonies, establishing infrastructure, and advancing technology along paths the Council had never explored. The search party detected a small administrative outpost on the 4th world they discovered and decided to make contact. As they landed at the designated area, they were greeted not by military forces, but by a single human administrator. "Welcome to New Horizons," said Choi Young, a middle-aged man dressed in simple but elegant clothes. "We've been expecting a Council delegation eventually." Vaxus was taken aback by the calm reception. "You knew we would come?" Choi Young smiled. "Of course. The Council would eventually notice our absence and come looking. Would you like some tea? It's a human custom to offer refreshments to visitors." The Council delegation was escorted to a small but comfortable meeting room. Through the windows, they could see a thriving city stretching toward distant mountains. Humans went about their business, seemingly unconcerned by the arrival of alien visitors. "How is this possible?" Ilara asked, gesturing toward the city. "This level of development would take decades." "It did take decades," Choi Young replied simply. "We began establishing these colonies almost immediately after joining the Galactic Council. We recognized early on that our place in the galactic community might be precarious." Vaxus leaned forward. "The Council has sent us to establish dialogue. Many systems critical to Council infrastructure are failing without human expertise. We are prepared to offer a restoration of your Class A status in exchange for technical assistance." Choi Young's expression remained pleasant, but neutral. "We have no quarrel with the Council," he explained calmly. "But neither do we have anything to offer. Our path diverged from yours by your choice, not ours. But surely you can see the benefit of cooperation," pressed Vaxus. "The Council spans thousands of worlds. The resources, the cultural exchange. We had that once," interrupted Choi Young. "The Council decided we were too unpredictable and potentially dangerous." The Council chamber had never been so quiet. Commander Vaxus stood at the podium, his 4 eyes blinking nervously as he finished presenting his findings about the human colonies. The holographic images of thriving human cities, advanced infrastructure, and mysterious technology hung in the air above the assembled representatives. To summarize, Vaxis said, the humans have established at least 7 major colony worlds beyond the Sagittarius Arm. These colonies appear to have been under development for decades, long before their departure from Council space. Their technology has evolved in unexpected directions. Supreme Counselor Gresh leaned forward in his environment suit. Explain what you mean by evolved in unexpected directions. Are they a military threat? Vaxis chose his words carefully. I saw no evidence of military buildup in the traditional sense. No fleets of warships, no weapons platforms, but their technological development has diverged significantly from Council standards. They appear to have abandoned many technologies they once used while in Council space and developed entirely new approaches. Ilara, his first officer, stepped forward. They modified our ship's engines while we were in a meeting, without our knowledge or permission. The modifications improved our efficiency by 30%. We didn't detect any monitoring devices or malicious changes, just improvements. The Council erupted in concerned murmurs. The ability to modify advanced technology undetected spoke of capabilities beyond what they had attributed to humans. Did they agree to provide technical assistance for our failing systems? Asked Counselor Thalos, his branch-like limbs trembling slightly. No, replied Vaxis. They said they would consider our request, but made it clear they have no interest in rejoining the Council structure. Any help would be provided as one independent civilization to another. The Economic Minister Chirix fluttered his wings in distress. This is unacceptable. They must be made to understand their obligations. Perhaps a show of military force would be extremely unwise, interrupted Vaxis sharply. Based on what we observed, I believe the humans are now technologically superior to the Council in several key areas. More importantly, they seem completely self-sufficient. They don't need us. We need them. After hours of debate, the Council authorized a diplomatic mission to formally negotiate with the human leadership. They also approved, in a private session not recorded in public records, a covert intelligence operation to infiltrate human territories and assess their technological development more thoroughly. Commander Ixil, head of the Council's elite intelligence unit, selected 4 operatives for this sensitive mission. Each was chosen for their ability to blend in on human worlds and their technical expertise in different fields. Their mission was simple in concept but extremely difficult in execution: infiltrate human society, assess their technological capabilities, and determine whether they posed a threat to the Council. The operatives were deployed individually to different human colonies using false identities and carefully crafted cover stories. They traveled on civilian trading vessels that had legitimate business in the neutral zones near human space, then made their way to human territories through various means. Agent Krell, disguised as a Draxus merchant, established himself on the human colony world New Horizon. His specialty was propulsion systems, and his mission was to assess human space travel technology. For the first month, he operated his small trading post without incident, carefully observing and documenting what he could see of human ships coming and going from the spaceport. What he discovered was puzzling. The human ships appeared almost primitive from the outside, blocky, utilitarian designs without the sleek aesthetics of Council vessels. Yet they moved with incredible efficiency, and sometimes seemed to appear and disappear from sensor range instantaneously. After careful planning, Krell managed to secure an invitation to a technical symposium where human engineers discussed transportation innovations. He sat in the back of the large hall recording the presentation with hidden devices, struggling to understand what he was hearing. A human engineer named Yoon Jin presented what the humans called phase shift drive technology. Krell's translator struggled with many of the technical terms, but he grasped enough to be deeply concerned. The humans had apparently abandoned traditional hyperdrive technology, completely in favor of something that operated on entirely different principles. By shifting slightly out of phase with normal space-time, Yoonjin explained to the audience, our vessels can effectively reduce the distance between any 2 points to 0. The energy requirements are approximately 1/8 of conventional hyperdrive systems, and there is no theoretical limit to range. Krell managed to capture partial schematics of the system before having to leave to avoid suspicion. What he saw defied Council understanding of physics, The humans weren't just improving existing technology. They were developing entirely new branches of science. On another human world called Terra Nova, Agent Mira posed as a Virillian medical researcher interested in human healthcare practices. Her real mission was to assess human defensive and weapons technology. For several weeks, she found nothing significant. No obvious military installations. No weapons demonstrations. Her breakthrough came when she befriended a human security officer named Kang Do. Over a shared meal, she carefully steered the conversation toward defense matters. "Your colonies seem remarkably unprotected," she observed casually. "I've noticed very few security checkpoints or defense platforms." "Aren't you concerned about potential threats?" Kang Do smiled. "Our approach to security is different now. We found that visible defenses often create the problems they're meant to solve. They signal aggression and invite challenge. But surely you have some way to protect yourselves," pressed Mira. "Of course," Kang Do replied. "Defense is about control of information and environment, not about weapons. Here, let me show you something." He led her to a public park in the center of the city. Children played while adults relaxed on benches or tended to small gardens. Nothing about the space suggested military applications. "What do you see?" he asked. "A park," Mira replied, confused. "Yes, but it's also one of our defense nodes. The patterns of the walkways, the placement of the trees, even the children's play equipment, they're all part of a systemic approach to security." He held up a small device that looked like a simple communication tool. "If I activate emergency protocols, this entire section of the city can be isolated from outside influence. Communications can be blocked, observation prevented, access restricted, all without a single visible weapon or barrier." The casual way he revealed this information made Mira suspect he knew exactly who she was and was deliberately showing her enough to send a message back to the council. Traditional concepts of military power no longer applied when dealing with humans. Her suspicions were confirmed when she returned to her temporary quarters to find a small gift box on her table. Inside was a beautiful Virillian meditation stone, something that could only have come from her homeworld, and which no human should have been able to identify as culturally significant to her. Attached was a note that read simply, "We know. It's okay. You're safe here. But please understand, so are we." The other two operatives had similar experiences. Each discovered aspects of human technological development that challenged council understanding, and each received subtle but unmistakable messages that their true identities were known. When the operatives finally managed to report back to Commander Ixil, their findings sent shockwaves through council leadership. Humans had not only continued to advance technologically after leaving council space, they had accelerated, taking evolutionary leaps that should have required centuries. More disturbing was the realization that human defensive capabilities, once deemed primitive by council military assessments, had evolved into something entirely new. They had moved beyond weapons and shields to systemic approaches that integrated technology, information, and environment in ways the council had never explored. This became tragically clear when a Thoraxian battle group, acting without council authorization, attempted to seize a small human outpost on the edge of their territory. The Thoraxians, historically aggressive and still resentful of human competition in the mining sector, deployed 12 heavily armed vessels with orders to claim the outpost and its resources. As the battle group approached the human outpost, their weapons systems suddenly went offline. Their engines continued to function, but control systems responded sluggishly. Communication between ships became unreliable, filled with static and delays. Then, appearing seemingly from nowhere, 3 small human vessels surrounded the Thoraxian fleet. No weapons were visible on the human ships. They simply maintained position, their presence a quiet statement. A transmission came from the lead human vessel. "Your intentions are clear, but unnecessary. If you require resources, we are open to establishing trade agreements. Violence benefits neither of us." The commander of the Thoraxian fleet, furious at being rendered helpless, ordered his flagship to ram the nearest human vessel. His ship's engines failed to respond. Instead, the entire Thoraxian battle group found themselves being gently but firmly escorted back to council space by the 3 human ships, their systems partially restored but still under external control. 10 years had passed since humanity's quiet departure from the Galactic Council. What began as an inconvenience for the Council had grown into a full-blown crisis. Across Council space, technological systems continued to degrade. Economic networks that had once spanned thousands of worlds fractured as key components became unavailable. Several member species had already broken away, seeking their own paths forward in a galaxy that suddenly seemed much less certain. In a private chamber deep within the Council station, Supreme Counselor Gresh met with his most trusted advisors. The room was specially designed to accommodate diverse biological needs. Gresh's own gas-breathing environment, the humid conditions required by Thalos, and the low gravity preferred by Economic Minister Chirix. "Our situation grows worse," Gresh said, his translator converting his gaseous emissions into understandable speech. "The latest reports indicate 17 more systems have experienced critical infrastructure failures. 3 minor species have already gone extinct due to life support failures we cannot repair." Thalos, once the most vocal critic of humanity, had seen his influence diminish as the consequences of their departure became impossible to ignore. His branches drooped noticeably. "We must find a solution. Could we reverse engineer human technology? We have some of their older devices still functioning." The new head of Council Intelligence, a shadow-dwelling nocturne named Vila, laughed bitterly. "We've tried. For 10 years, our best minds have studied even the simplest human devices. The problem isn't that their technology is too advanced. It's that it follows entirely different principles than ours. They saw connections that we cannot see, used approaches that make no sense to our scientists. And meanwhile," added Chirix, "our trading networks collapse. The economic impact has reduced overall Council productivity by 46%. At this rate, the Council itself may not survive another decade." Gresh's environment suit hissed as it adjusted to his changing mood. "Then we have no choice. We must formally approach the humans and offer them whatever is necessary to secure their assistance." After much debate, the Council voted to send their most prestigious delegation to human space. Led by Gresh himself, the group included representatives from every major Council species. Their mission was clear: offer humanity not just reinstatement to Class A status, but a permanent leadership position within a restructured galactic government. The journey to human space was eye-opening for the Council delegation. They traveled on a human transport vessel that had been sent to collect them, a courtesy they hadn't expected. The ship appeared simple from the outside, lacking the ornate design elements common to Council vessels. Inside, however, it was a marvel of efficient engineering. "Notice how everything serves multiple functions," observed Vila as she studied their quarters. "This wall isn't just a partition, it's also a data display, a temperature regulator, and if I'm not mistaken, an emergency medical station." The human crew was polite but reserved. They answered direct questions about ship operations, but volunteered little about their society or technology. The Council representatives found this maddening, having expected either hostility they could counter or friendliness they could exploit. Instead, they encountered professional neutrality that gave them no opening. After a journey of just 3 days, remarkably fast for the distance covered, they arrived at what the humans called their central coordination hub. It wasn't Earth as many had expected, but a massive space station unlike anything in Council territory. The station appeared to be grown rather than built, with flowing organic lines that nonetheless housed clearly advanced technology. "Welcome to Harmony Station," said their guide, a middle-aged human woman who introduced herself simply as Coordinator Kim. "Our leadership will meet with you tomorrow. Until then, please rest and adjust to our environment. Your biological needs have been accommodated in your assigned quarters." The Council delegation was led to a section of the station that had been customized for their various species, perfect atmospheric conditions, gravity, lighting, and even familiar foods from their homeworlds. The attention to detail was both impressive and unsettling. The humans had clearly studied them thoroughly. The next morning, they were escorted to a circular meeting chamber. The human delegation was already present, 5 individuals seated at a round table with 5 empty seats for the Council representatives. At the center of the human group sat a woman in her 60s, her white hair cut short, her expression calm but evaluating. "I am Director Park Min," she said as they entered, "former cultural attaché to the Council and current Director of External Relations for the Human Confederation. Please be seated." Supreme Counselor Gresh took his place opposite Director Park. We appreciate your willingness to meet with us. The Council recognizes that our previous decision regarding humanity's status was an error in judgment. Park Min smiled slightly. An error with significant consequences, it seems. For the next several hours, the Council delegation outlined their proposal. Humanity would be granted not just Class A status, but a permanent seat on the High Council itself. Human technological expertise would be treated as equal to any in the galaxy. Human colonies would receive protected status under Council law. In exchange, they requested human assistance in repairing failing infrastructure, rebuilding economic networks, and sharing their technological developments. Throughout the presentation, the humans listened attentively, asking occasional clarifying questions but giving no indication of their thoughts. When the Council delegation finished, Director Park thanked them for their proposal. "We will need time to consider your offer," she said. "In the meantime, perhaps you would like to see more of what we've built since our departure. Understanding who we are now might help you understand our eventual decision." Over the next 3 days, the Council delegation was given carefully controlled tours of human facilities. What they saw astonished them. Humans had not just advanced, they had transformed their entire approach to technology and society. In a research facility, they observed humans working with energy systems that seemed to defy the known laws of physics. "We no longer think of energy as something to be generated and consumed," explained the lead scientist, Yoon-jin. "We've learned to work with the underlying patterns of reality to access what was always there." In manufacturing centers, they watched as humans created complex devices without the massive industrial infrastructure the Council relied upon. Distributed production, their guide called it. Small community-based facilities that could adapt to create whatever was needed, wherever it was needed. Most impressive was the medical technology. In a quiet healing center, they witnessed treatments that seemed more like art than science. "We discovered that health isn't just about fixing broken parts," and explained Dr. Bei Wan, a serene older man who led the facility. "It's about restoring harmony at all levels of being." On the final day of their visit, the Council delegation was brought back to the circular meeting chamber. Director Park and her team were already seated, their expressions neutral but resolved. "We have considered your proposal carefully," Director Park began. "We appreciate the recognition and the offers of status within the Council structure. However, we must decline." The Council representatives were stunned into silence. They had come prepared to negotiate details, not face outright rejection. "But why?" asked Councillor Thalos, his branches trembling with surprise. "We've offered you everything you could want. Power, status, recognition. Those are things the Council values," interrupted Park Min gently. "They are not what we value, not anymore. Our departure from Council space was difficult, yes, but it forced us to reconsider everything. Who we are, what we want to become, our place in the universe." She gestured toward the viewport where the curved edge of a blue-green planet was visible. "In the 10 years since we left, we've built something different. Not better or worse than the Council. Just different. We have no interest in rejoining a structure that once deemed us unworthy based on fears and misunderstandings." Gresh's environment suit bubbled with agitation. "Your people are suffering for this pride. The Council infrastructure is failing. Lives are being lost. Do you bear no responsibility for the knowledge you took with you?" For the first time, a flash of emotion crossed Director Park's face. Not anger, but something like sadness. "We bear responsibility for our actions, yes. That is why we propose an alternative to your offer. We will not rejoin the Council, but we are prepared to establish a diplomatic and trade relationship between equals. We will provide technical assistance for critical systems where lives are at risk. We will share some of our technological developments. Those we believe won't be misused." She leaned forward, her gaze moving from one Council representative to another. "But understand this. We will do so as an independent civilization dealing with another independent civilization. Not as subjects returning to the fold, not as a species seeking to dominate others, simply as humans finding our way forward and helping others when we can." The terms she outlined were both generous and firm. Humanity would provide expert teams to help rebuild critical infrastructure. They would establish trade relationships for essential goods and technologies. 20 years had passed since humanity's quiet departure from the Galactic Council. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The once mighty council, which had spanned thousands of worlds and hundreds of species, was now a shadow of its former self. Many member species had broken away, seeking their own paths or forming new alliances. The technological regression that began with humanity's exit had continued, forcing many civilizations to rebuild from simpler foundations. In contrast, the human confederation had thrived. Their colonies, hidden for so long, were now known centers of innovation and culture. Their ships traveled between stars using methods that other species could barely comprehend. Their society had evolved in directions that fascinated and sometimes confused their galactic neighbors. On the remnant council station, preparations were underway for a historic session. After months of internal debate, the remaining council members had voted to formally dissolve the existing structure and create something new, with humanity's help. Representatives from 37 species gathered in the Grand Chamber, now showing visible signs of decay despite constant repair efforts. Supreme Counselor Gresh, still in his position after all these years, called the session to order. His environment suit was noticeably less advanced than the one he had worn 20 years earlier, with manual controls replacing the once automated systems. Representatives of the Galactic Council, he began, his translator converting his gaseous speech patterns. Today we acknowledge what many have known for years. The Council, as it was conceived thousands of years ago, has reached its end. We can no longer maintain the infrastructure, the economic networks, or the technological base that bound us together. Murmurs of agreement, tinged with sadness, filled the chamber. None could deny the reality they faced. But endings bring new beginnings, continued Gresh. Today, we welcome a delegation from the Human Confederation to discuss a new form of galactic cooperation, one based not on dominance and technological control, but on mutual respect and shared growth. The massive doors at the end of the chamber opened. A single human entered, a woman in her 30s dressed in simple but elegant clothing. She carried no weapons, no communications devices, no visible technology of any kind, yet her presence immediately commanded attention. This is Ryu Min, Chief Diplomat of the Human Confederation, announced Gresh. Some of you may not recognize her, but she once served in this very chamber as a junior note-taker for the human delegation. She was here the day we voted to downgrade humanity to Class C status. Ryu Min walked calmly to the central podium, her footsteps echoing in the silent chamber. She surveyed the assembled representatives with a thoughtful expression before speaking. 20 years ago, I sat in the observer section of this chamber, recording minutes of the council session. I was 22 years old, recently graduated, honored to serve in such an august body. Her voice was clear and carried throughout the chamber without technological amplification. I recorded the vote that classified my species as too unpredictable and potentially dangerous to warrant Class A status. I noted the time, 1427 Galactic Standard. I observed the expressions of satisfaction on many faces. She paused, not in anger, but in reflection. And then I transmitted the coded signal that activated the final phase of Operation Quiet Departure, a plan that had been in development for 50 years, since the first human delegates recognized that the Council's structure might not have room for our particular approach to the universe. Many of the representatives shifted uncomfortably. The revelation that such a junior staff member had played a key role in humanity's carefully orchestrated exit was unsettling. Today, I return not as a note-taker, but as the voice of humanity. I come not seeking revenge or dominance, but to offer a different vision for our shared future. For the next hour, Ryu Min outlined humanity's proposal. The Galactic Council would be dissolved. In its place would rise a new organization called the Stellar Concordat, a looser association of independent civilizations. There would be no hierarchical classifications, no technological restrictions, no centralized authority. We propose a relationship of equals, she explained, trading partners who respect each other's sovereignty and different paths of development. Each civilization will be free to develop along its own trajectory, sharing what they wish, keeping private what they choose. The proposal included practical measures. Human technical teams would help stabilize critical infrastructure during the transition. Knowledge would be shared based on readiness and responsibility, not political status. Trade would be encouraged but not forced. When she finished her presentation, the chamber remained silent for several moments. Then Counselor Thalos, now visibly aged with faded branches and drooping limbs, raised a branch to speak. "This proposal gives the Council nothing," he protested. "No central authority, no technological control, no power." Ryumin smiled gently. "That is correct, because those things are precisely what led to the Council's current situation. A structure built on technological disparity and centralized control is inherently unstable. When humans left, the system began to collapse not because we were essential, but because the system itself was flawed." She gestured toward the chamber's cracked walls and flickering lights. "Look around you. The mighty Council Station, once the crown jewel of galactic civilization, struggles to maintain basic functions. Why? Because it was built on principles of dependency, not resilience, of control, not cooperation." An older Virillian rose to speak next. "You speak of cooperation, yet humans have isolated themselves for 20 years, hoarding their technological advances while we struggled. We isolated ourselves because the alternative was to be controlled or to control others," Ryumin responded. "We needed time to find our own path, to ensure that when we returned to galactic society, we would do so as partners, not as subjects or conquerors." She touched a simple pendant at her neck, and a holographic image appeared in the center of the chamber. A three-dimensional map of the galaxy with thousands of glowing points representing inhabited worlds. "This is the galaxy as it exists today. Not as the Council records show, not as any one species perceives it, but the true state of civilization among the stars. Many of the worlds you thought were failing are actually thriving, just outside your notice. Many species you classified as primitive have developed rich cultures and unique technologies." The representatives stared in shock at the map, which showed a much more diverse and vibrant galactic community than Council records indicated. The Council saw the galaxy through a lens of hierarchy and control. Continued Ryumin. "What if we tried a different approach? What if we built connections based on mutual benefit rather than power? What if each civilization was free to find its own unique gifts to share with others?" The debate that followed lasted for days. Some species embraced the human proposal immediately, seeing in it a chance for true independence and growth. Others resisted, fearful of losing what little status they still maintained in the Council structure. A few threatened to withdraw completely rather than accept a new order they couldn't control. Throughout the heated discussions, Ryumin remained calm and patient. She answered questions, clarified proposals, but never pushed or pressured. The choice, she insisted, belonged to each species. On the fourth day, Supreme Counselor Gresh called for a final decision. "We have heard all perspectives. Now we must choose our path forward. The proposal before us would dissolve the Galactic Council and establish the Stellar Concordat. Each species must decide whether to join this new organization or chart their own course." One by one, the representatives voted. Some did so reluctantly, others with enthusiasm. In the end, 32 of the 37 species chose to join the Concordat. 5 decided to withdraw and consider their options independently. As the session concluded, Ryumin approached Gresh privately. "You led that session masterfully," she told him. "The transition will be difficult, but I believe it leads to a better future for all our peoples." Gresh's environment suit bubbled thoughtfully. "I have had 20 years to reflect on our mistake. When we downgraded humanity's status, we did so from fear. Fear of your unpredictability, your tendency to question established ways, your rapid adaptability. We saw these as dangerous traits to be contained. And now?" asked Ryumin. "Now I understand that those same traits were exactly what the galaxy needed. Not to be controlled or classified, but to be embraced as a different way of seeing the universe." He extended a manipulator appendage from his suit in a gesture of respect. "The Council failed to recognize humanity's true value. I hope the Concordat will not make the same mistake." In the months that followed, the transformation began. The massive Council station was repurposed as a neutral meeting ground for all species. Human technical teams worked alongside engineers from dozens of worlds to stabilize critical systems across former Council space. Some of the most significant changes were cultural rather than technological. Species that had been classified as primitive under the Council system revealed unique perspectives and approaches that enriched the galactic community. Civilizations that had developed in isolation brought fresh ideas to shared challenges.